Hi, I'm Dr. Chloe Carmichael, and thanks so much for checking out my video on my top tips for entrepreneurs. I just want to start by congratulating you for deciding to watch this video. I'm assuming that you are an entrepreneur or you want to be an entrepreneur, and so you're thinking about ways that you can get some information, get some support for yourself, and those are really healthy things for entrepreneurs to do. Whether you're in the startup phase or whether you're already a little bit further along, the tips that you see here I hope will help you, inspire you, and support you. So just to start things off a little bit, I want to share a little bit about myself as an entrepreneur, because I'm a clinical psychologist, and certainly my training in clinical psychology, my knowledge of cognition and emotion and motivation helps a lot when I'm working with private clients who are entrepreneurs. But for myself as an entrepreneur, there are some lessons I've had to kind of learn the hard way, insights that I've come across as I've built my own business. So I just want to share with you a little bit about that. I started my practice in 2012, just a few weeks, literally, in fact, probably less than a few weeks after my license as a clinical psychologist became active. So I had to go to school after college for 5 years to get a PhD, and then I had to work under another psychologist license for a year in order to get my license. So after 6 years of training, I was definitely raring to go and start my own practice. I never imagined that my practice would grow to the point where it is today, which is that we actually clear over $1 million annually in documented revenue, and I appear regularly on national television, and I've been recently named as the official relationship expert for women's health published by Hearst, and I'm under a book deal with Macmillan on my work with what's known as high-functioning people, which I'm guessing is people like you, people that are intelligent and motivated and driven. But back in 2012, when I started my practice, I never knew any of this was going to happen. My only concern at that time was literally hoping that I could pay my rent. I started my own little office in private practice and was hoping I could get clients, and to my great surprise, within a few weeks, my practice was really taking off. And within a year, I had to start hiring other therapists to work underneath me to support the volume of clients that I was attracting. I also had to start hiring receptionists and back office staff. And so now we have a team of 3 really wonderful receptionists, about a half a dozen therapists, and other additional support staff and web teams that are helping to create the videos that you're watching right now. And the practice has really grown. And I'm not sharing that at all to, brag about myself. I'm just sharing it with you because for you as an intelligent, motivated person, I want you to have some sense of who I am and why it is that I'm offering you these tips and the context for why they might be helpful to you. So now that you know a little bit about who I am and what I do, I want to give you a little overview of some of the topics that we're going to be covering today. You're certainly welcome to just skip ahead to whatever topics suit you the most, but I would encourage you to go ahead and watch the whole video, even if you are further along in your entrepreneurial career and some of the tips might seem a little bit junior to you. Or, for example, if you're very junior and some of the tips seem very advanced for you, I would still encourage you to go ahead and watch them all, because I can tell you from personal experience that it really helps me sometimes to just go back and review the basics. And it also really helps me sometimes to hear from entrepreneurs that are further along than I am and that are doing things that I'm not quite ready for yet, but it helps me to plant those seeds in my horizon. So a little overview of some of the things that we are going to be talking about today are some of my general top tips for entrepreneurs to stay motivated and be successful. We're also going to be talking about the issue that since entrepreneurs do generally pour their heart and soul into their business, how can they not take it personally when things are not going so great and when they're encountering some challenges? We're also going to be talking about a topic I hear from entrepreneurs on a lot, which is the issue of family. Sometimes, whether your business is growing and thriving and it's requiring a lot of your energy, that can actually sometimes put a strain on your family. Or sometimes, if the business is not yet quite off the ground, that can be hard for the family to understand too. But I'm a married woman and I have a son, and I can tell you that my family's support means everything to me. And I know that for many entrepreneurs, having their family support means a lot. And as a psychologist, I can tell you that when we have the support of the people that are closest to us, we're more likely to be successful. So learning how to mobilize and harness your family support is important for your business, as well as, of course, your well-being and for your family. We're also going to be talking about the issue of business coaches and therapists for entrepreneurs. It's really kind of its own specialized niche, and it certainly does seem like everybody and their brother is basically hanging up a sign these days calling themselves a business coach. It's kind of the Wild West. And so a question that I get a lot from people, whether entrepreneurs in my practice or in the entrepreneurs organization where I'm a member, and I just interact with entrepreneurs a lot, they often ask me, how can I sort through all of these different coaches and therapists? And so I'm going to be offering you some tips and some questions that you can ask as you interview potential coaches or therapists that are going to help you, if that's something that you want, if you want that extra support, to make sure that you really get someone who's a good fit for you, that would give you a good ROI on the investment of time and money that you would be making if you decided to open yourself up and see what it would be like to try a session or two with somebody that could give you some one-to-one support. I really hope that you enjoy what you're learning, and I absolutely encourage you to follow me on social media, interact with me. If you have any questions about what I'm saying, please know that, of course, I'm available for private consultation. But even if private consultation isn't what you want, by all means, feel free to interact with me on social media. Ask me some questions. I love to interact with people. That's why I'm making this video, and that's why I'm a psychologist. So thank you so much for watching, and now we're going to go ahead and dive in. The first tip is to understand your body clock and honor your body clock. Start paying attention to it. If you're not sure what your body clock is, then that's a good sign that you need to start paying attention to it, because that is your body's natural energy. And we want to capitalize on your body's and your mind's natural energy. So the second tip is also that you want to capitalize on your own natural impulses and energy. So when I was first starting my practice, I actually would keep 2 different to-do lists. I would keep one to-do list of things that I needed to do to grow my business when I was actually feeling a little bit quiet or a little bit low energy, or whatever the case may be, kind of like simpler kind of admin tasks. And then the second list I would keep would be things that I could do for networking when I was feeling really gregarious and really wanting to be out there. As we all know, there are things as entrepreneurs that we need to do that are in both categories. Some of the stuff that we need to do is actually a little bit tedious and a little bit boring. And when you're in a certain kind of a headspace, though, and you're actually not seeking a big cognitive challenge, that's the perfect time to go ahead and knock that type of stuff out. On the other hand, when you're feeling really inspired and really on fire, that's the time to have your other list of some of the things to do when you're actually feeling a little bit more cognitively and emotionally seeking some stimulation. The idea here is that you're noticing and accommodating your own natural approach. This is actually a technique that I borrowed from what's called the Montessori school of working with children and entrepreneurs. I think many of us, myself included, like to be able to have a little bit of that childlike spirit of creativity and enjoyment and just natural fun in the work that we're doing. And so in the Montessori school, what they do is they'll have various workstations for things like whether it be science or art or reading, and they let the kids go and work at whichever workstation the child wants to do. We have a lot of extra stresses as entrepreneurs. There's a lot of extra things that we have to take responsibility for. But what offsets that is that we also have a fair amount of freedom in our day. We get to decide what we're going to work on and when we're going to work on it. So I would just encourage you to make sure that you really leverage that resource that you have of latitude. However, please don't burden yourself with having to think of those tasks. When I say I had 2 lists, I literally mean I did and do have 2 lists. In fact, it's even grown to a few other lists to really be specific about if I'm feeling very gregarious and I want to reach out to people, or if I'm feeling like being on camera and I'm feeling ready to shoot a video, or if I'm actually feeling kind of more pensive and quiet and I want to go work on my book or something like that. So I would encourage you to keep various lists of all the things that you have to do, and then work on whatever's on your list depending on what suits you at that moment. That's how you'll capitalize on your own energy and whichever of your own strengths are coming forward in any particular moment naturally. Now, obviously, there are certain things that we just have to do at certain times. Every Wednesday, I have to run payroll, whether I feel like it or not. I'm not saying that we can change everything according to ourselves, but I would advise you to be strategic and allow yourself to do the things that suit your energy best, at least as much as you have the latitude to do so. Another thing I would encourage you to do as an entrepreneur, if you're not doing this already, is to give yourself the benefit of cutting out your projects and organizing them for yourself. As employees always say, for them, what makes a good boss usually is a boss that lets them know exactly what they need to be doing, what the steps are, so that all the employee has to do is show up for work and follow the steps that the employer has laid out for them. The employer has invested a certain amount of time in project planning, and then the employees are able to just literally look at a chart or a task list and follow the instructions. They don't have to reinvent the wheel every time that they go to work. So I would encourage you as an entrepreneur to do the same thing for yourself. An example for me of this is that when I was writing my dissertation in order to get my PhD, which frankly was one of the most involved and complex and cumbersome projects that I ever had to do. It was a multi-year process to write a successful dissertation. I had to get committee approval on my research. I then had to get my university's approval to conduct the research. I then had to recruit and do some experiments on actual live volunteer undergraduates to perform the research. I then had to, of course, write up the research and go through an editing process with my committee, and then I had to present and what's actually called defend the research, because part of the process is that your committee deliberately criticizes and tries to challenge your research at a live presentation, and if you're not able to successfully defend it, then you don't get your PhD yet. So I'm using that as an example, even though it's not really exactly a business challenge, but it was a big part of my entrepreneurial challenge. At that point, as a PhD student, I was essentially an entrepreneur trying to create something that I would be able to use in order to go into business for myself. And what I did is I broke that multi-year project down into 3 or 4 different phases. And under each phase, I had all of the little tasks and steps that had to be done. And then I put that on my wall by my computer so that every time I sat down to my desk, I could see exactly where I was in time, and I could literally check off each step as I got it done. And so when I had little setbacks, anybody ever had a setback? I imagine I'm not the only person. Entrepreneurs are experts, right, at overcoming setbacks. We're resilient. That's how we stay scrappy, we stay hustling, and we make it work, right? And so you can do yourself a favor if you give yourself a nice, clear, literal even printout of phases and sub-steps and organize yourself so that all you have to do is show up and look at your little list and see what you need to be doing that day, so that you don't put that kind of pressure on yourself that you have to be organizing and reinventing the wheel and making it up as you go along. Okay, I know we actually do